Well, I hope everyone had an enjoyable coffee break, fired up, ready for what's going to be a really fascinating conversation with a really illustrious panel. So I'm going to speak as little as possible so that they can share their insights. I'm joined up here, Carolina Martinez, CEO of CAMEO, supporting multicultural entrepreneurs and small businesses across North and South America. She has extensive experience in business coaching, economic development, and building programs that help underserved communities launch and scale. And I'll just say I've known her a really long time, pretty much my whole career, so this is awesome. Not quite as long have I known Juan Pablo Cervantes, who is counsel at Galicia Abogados SC, where he advises on banking, finance, mergers, and international trade. He's been heavily involved in Mexico-US and Mexico-Canada trade relations and multilateral trade agreements, something we'll be talking about. And last but certainly not least, Daniela Martinez is the Vice President of Trade at Conoco Servitur Mexico. She specializes in international trade, supply chain security, and SME internationalization, which I want to hear all about, and has experience across multiple industries and focuses on empowering women entrepreneurs. Just a quick round of applause for these pretty stellar panelists. Let's jump in. North America is clearly in a moment of shared global visibility, for lack of a better word. We'll have the World Cup next year, rising cross-border investment and policy. So what kind of opportunities, and we'll just go down the panel starting with Carolina, where do you see opportunity for business creation in this current moment?
Well, thank you, John, for the introduction. I'm so glad to be here with all of you. I think right now we're in a very special moment. We have so many global events that are bringing highly visible opportunities for small businesses. And the fact that, as you mentioned, for example, sport events like the World Cup or the Olympics are really coming in, including several countries, is really an opportunity for small businesses to assess how we are really supporting them and what opportunities can they really take into. This allows us also to assess what kind of ecosystem we have to really help them succeed and explore those opportunities, and how much can we really align values and systems in a way that foster the growth of these businesses. We do work at CAMEO with very small businesses. You mentioned a little bit, we have over 400 member organizations serving almost 300,000 small businesses a year. And a lot of what we are seeing with them is the importance of bringing that capacity building and awareness. We heard it in the previous panel about what opportunities can they really access. And I think there is an opportunity to engage small businesses in several ways. I mean, we'll explore a little bit about procurement opportunities here. It's like, how could they really engage with these events in a way that allow them to grow, to succeed, to connect with bigger businesses? And what systems can they put in place in a way that would allow that growth to be systemic and continue to that, sustainable over time after the events actually happen? And also, there is so many opportunities, not only there, but working into collaboration among small businesses. How could we coordinate initiatives? We are based in California, and we saw a lot with climate resiliency. How do we prepare small businesses to respond to different events or disasters, and how we can really connect with the small businesses throughout the three countries to really support each other. So I think there is a lot of opportunities that we could explore right now, even on very uncertain circumstances and landscape that could really impact them. But I think we should really look into how could we take the positive view of that and engage on those opportunities.
Juan?
Right, well, thank you very much, John, for the kind invitation. Delighted to share this panel with you, and of course, with Carolina and Daniela. So thanks again. I'm glad that you bring up the World Cup in 2026. I think it's going to be very, very relevant for all the world to, have an eye on North America. And that, of course, is going to be relevant because in 2026, we're going to have the USMCA review, as we all know. And this, it's undeniable that we're in a new economic and financial world order. And I think it poses, some challenges, but of course opportunities. It has been mentioned earlier in this forum, opportunities both in the traditional sectors, manufacturing, supply chains, but of course opportunities as well in the new sectors. AI is going to, open up a whole new world out there of opportunities. So, we're excited about this. At COMSE, which is the organization that I also assist in, we are very, very keen on helping out SMEs to integrate in the global chains and to take up this opportunity. So, just returning to the World Cup analogy, this will also bring huge opportunities to companies of all sizes, but particularly to SMEs in the hospitality, in tech, in restaurants, and what have you. So it's going to be a great moment for us to further this discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much, John, for the invitation, and thank you, Caroline and Juan Pablo. It's an honor to be sharing this panel with you. And of course, the World Cup, but it also we have to see that the nearshoring is accelerating and changing how it's working, and the business are looking forward to see North America for their proximity and the innovation. So this opens a lot of opportunities for manufacturing, logistic, but also to collaborate in some natural areas like clean energies, like technology, and some opportunities that, of course, integrate also the SMEs for all these value chain that we have to integrate of North America. But it's important to mention that Canada, US, and Mexico have to align the capabilities in order to have this opportunity to enhance them, in order to build business together, not just to visibility, but to build together a future as a region.
One of the themes of this panel, but also I think across the continent, is the word culture. And in a previous version of EX, we were in Europe. Europe struggles at times to embrace an entrepreneurial culture. Asia at times struggles to foster entrepreneurship, and yet Canada, Mexico, and the United States, deeply entrepreneurial cultures. How do you see culture show up, and how can we leverage that to the benefit of SMEs? And maybe, Carolina, I'll start with you. What's the culture of micro business and around CAMEO? How does that play a role?
Well, I think it's such a great question. I heard in the previous panel talk a little bit about ecosystem, and I want to kind of start there because when we talk about micro, very small businesses, we always understand that there is a certain type of culture that really incentivizes the growth of those, the start of the businesses. And for CAMEO, we are very focused in how do we really foster that ecosystem of support that allows the small businesses to grow, to really understand what is going around, what do they need to grow, to build their business. And we usually do 5 C's. I actually was going to talk later, but I want to bring it up here because one of those C's is culture. Mm-hmm. And equally important to the other 4, and which are coaching, capital, connections to markets and networks, and climate, which really relates to regulations and that they need to succeed. But culture is really how user-friendly we are, how business-friendly we are. Wherever they are, how much are we really supporting the small businesses to grow? Are we really going to buy from them? Are we really, as government, as nonprofits, as different stakeholders, really supporting their growth? And I think that's really important for us because it does require a certain level of business-friendly intent to really help them grow. We need to really work in all these 5 C's to really make sure that the small business is able to continue. So for us, building culture could be building opportunities. Like we were thinking through going back to the World Cup, for example, is like if there is going to be opportunities for big businesses, how do we incentivize the culture of immediately thinking, what small business can I bring in as a SOP? Can I go locally and really bring like if it's a Starbucks, can I really go locally for coffee roasters or coffee makers to really kind of feed my demand? So things like that, I think, is really important for us to create those opportunities and do a lot of that social interaction and experiment to build that culture for us.
And Juan Pablo, how does it show up? You wouldn't think culture when you think international banking, trade agreements, but do you see it come through that there is an underlying culture that enables the large business that you do?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's returning to what was mentioned a minute ago. I mean, we're under a new scenario, and from a legal perspective, this means, reviewing existing free trade agreements, analyzing multinational corporations. I mean, all of these are on the table, but there's this underlying trend, as has just been mentioned, about culture. How can we perhaps pivot from, globalization concepts that were so prevalent until recently to more local ideas? And for that, I think SMEs, as you were mentioning a minute ago, Carolina, are essential because they bring their own culture. And I suppose the challenge here is to blend these local cultures to the cultures as well of the large multinational corporations. So it's, again, going to be a very interesting moment to see how this can be blended and how we can capitalize on this to make sure that the SMEs have a stronger saying looking forward.
Daniela?
North American cultural ties, I say that it's not just a soft tide. It's a really important influence. We can see it in our food, in our taste, in our migration. So everything is already related. And this you can see it also in the cross-border market. The consumer is already thinking that, if I see it in the platforms, I can already buy it. And they expect that they will have the same delivery, the same timeline, and also the customer experience. So the market is transforming everything with the culture. Because if we see everything in the platform, we have to adapt to cross-border, to be quicker, and also this take us to review all our regulatory with our government. Because, of course, if we do not adapt this rapidly market, this will not grow as fast as we want to. Because the regulatory affairs, of course, it's taking better in some cases as food labeling and professional certifications, but it's not as quick as we want to. So it's my perspective.
Well, I think for that, we're in a moment where culture can now translate into economic growth. One of the things unlocking SMEs across all three economies is the growth of digital connectivity. And so I want to draw a through line from, okay, so we agree we have the culture to work together, to grow together, but it's these new tools, faster payment systems, things that navigate cross-border, bringing businesses online. Danielle, I'm going to come in reverse here and stay with you. How do you see digital connectivity enabling that culture and that economic growth?
Of course, there's a trend that we have to go faster, as I have already told, that we have to adapt all these tools in traceability and also to have this fast visualization of all the market. But it's, we were talking about the SMEs and the digitalization that we have already started in Concanaco, with Telcel too, that only 15% of the SMEs have already integrated in their strategy digitalization. So here is a problem that we see. Of course, digitalization is something that they have, is a must. But for this, we have to innovate, we have to invest for SMEs in order to be integrated in all the supply value chain. So Mexico has to look forward to integrate SMEs with technology and digitalization.
Do you agree, Juan Pablo?
Totally. I liked very much the term that you just used. I mean, unlocking the potential for SMEs. What has been mentioned, I mean, platforms, tools, payments, or content. I think this is going to be just key for democratizing international trade. I mean, how are we going to provide the tools for SMEs to go out there and compete against its peers or against larger companies throughout the world. And I think this digitalization is going to be crucial. Obviously, there are going to be challenges in the sense that many of these tools may be a bit expensive in some cases for SMEs. But on the other hand, I think they also are much more nimble than huge organizations and more keen to adapt many of these tools and implement them in their day-to-day. So again, I would like to underline this potential for the SMEs, for them to use all these tools available to them. And it's going to be very exciting.
And is that what you're seeing at CAMEO? How important is digital?
Well, it is key. One of the things that I would say is being digital technology investments are no longer a luxury for small businesses. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges we've had as we work with them. Because when we're talking about very small businesses, technology is not necessarily the priority in their mind, right? It's like they're really trying to keep their business open and bring clients in. But then right now, as we are seeing and as we suffer through the pandemic and then the economic crisis, inflation, rising tariffs, everything, and uncertainty, it's become very, very clear that the only way to really expand and grow is going to be with a digital component. And as you said before, it's really about figuring out what is it that they could use in a way that streamlines their operations, that helps them be more efficient, right? So with the uncertainties that some businesses that we've lived this year, for example, is a lot about how do we really become more local, and at the same time, we use technology to allow us to reach farther. And I think technology would help as we're having people working remotely. So we do have to have systems for sharing files. We have to have systems to do payroll that understands different states, different cities, different countries as we're looking into people moving throughout the region. So it is definitely, I think right now, something that is a great opportunity that we need to unlock, going back to the word, because I don't think we've really explored that perfectly right now. I think we're seeing movement in that. People is understanding that they need to adapt, that they need to add it, but there is still not full knowledge of how we could really leverage that. And it's very important for us to really build that economy throughout cross-border economy.
Well, between AT&T and Amazon on the next panel, I wonder if we'll hear more about this. Another way SMEs scale and grow, tried and true pathway, is entering the supply chain of large iconic brands. It has been a well-trod path, but in a moment of dynamism, changing scenarios, as we've said, how do you see both the role for getting into the supply chain for SMEs being critical, and how is it changing, if at all? And maybe, Daniela, start again with you.
For example, in Mexico, one of the most important strategies is Plan Mexico. That is, it's looking forward to invest some infrastructure in Mexico-wide, national-wide. And we see that it's a great opportunity to integrate the SMEs in all this plan. So I see not just for Mexico, but for the region, to integrate us in the plan, the SMEs, to see what not just to a discussion, but like a beautiful discussion of the SME that is always in the meeting, but to make a real plan, to see how can we integrate them, which investment do we have to take to them, capabilities, to training, and to see also the investment on platforms and digitalization. So I think it's important to see the SME as a strategy to grow regionally.
Juan Pablo?
Right. I mean, returning for a minute to the 2026 USMCA review. As NAFTA way back didn't have any specific chapters on SMEs, USMCA does. And I think it's also a great opportunity in 2026 to put on the table what additional considerations can be put forward for SMEs, in the 3 countries. The recent request for opinions on, by companies on the 3 countries has recently ended. And in the case of Mexico, the Mexican Ministry of Economy had specific dispositions for various, sectors, but particularly to SMEs. So it's, again, a great opportunity for all of us here to set out, these ideas. Now, having said this, obviously, the implementation of what has just been mentioned, how can we get them on board with the big companies? Obviously, that goes beyond the regulatory framework, and that's going to be a challenge. But again, from a legal perspective, from the framework of the agreements, etc., I think it's a great step forward and an opportunity that we shouldn't miss.
Caroline, before I come, I'm just struck by something that Daniela said of the beautiful discussion. And I think that puts so well and in perspective, we always have beautiful discussions about small business, don't we? Because who doesn't love small business? But how it translates actual into dollars and revenues. Thoughts on that, or supply chain more broad? Is it really materializing, and are we on the right path for supply chain to be more than a beautiful discussion?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think it's. I think it always will be a beautiful discussion. I think the fact that it is a discussion is important, because one of the biggest challenges we have is we're not bringing to the table the needs of these very small businesses when we talk about supplier diversity. And even when we work with, I've been a business consultant for almost 20 years, and it's always been like when I mention the idea of procurement or the supply or being part of the supply chain to access new contracts or to bring product from other countries, things like that, it's really hard for small businesses to think themselves in that scenario. And I think that is a big challenge. And as we are looking into opportunities, and as we are looking into how could we really build into the process and the path for the small businesses to build a very strong supply chain, we need to really go back to their capacity building, their awareness of we cannot leave them on their own. There has to be an infrastructure ready to for them to learn about the resources available, for them to understand what is actually in place, what are the goals, how to reach to prime contractors, how to access opportunities to for procurement. And I think it's really important for us to bring that to the table and keep talking about it, because small businesses are, and we are gonna go back to the World Cup several times here, but just as an example, is like, there is a disconnect right now into how they could connect with such a great opportunity. So there is this amazing opportunity that everybody wants to be part of, but there is no clear path of how to connect, right? And I think as we're doing it with 3 different countries, I think it's a beautiful opportunity for us to have this beautiful conversation of how can we collaborate? How could we incentivize contractors, primes, to really include these smaller businesses? And I think it's important for us to be adding that concept in any conversation that we have. And as we go back a little bit into how do we bring that to the small businesses? How do we bring a small supply chain to the small businesses? It's important for us to also to assess all the macroeconomic effects that they are seeing, everything that they're really suffering through and that is impacting them, and that they're not alone, that they have ecosystems to support them.
In a short time, we have covered the unified culture of entrepreneurship. We've talked about digital connectivity. We even covered supply chain. I challenge all of us to take away from here that this is more than a beautiful discussion and that we do something with it. Also, thank you for our branding for EX26. That's all set. we covered a lot of ground. I am tremendously grateful. Three incredible panelists that I hope you'll find time to pull aside throughout the rest of the day. Please join me in thanking them for their insights and their views.